Welcome, seekers of the unknown, to the Abyss Chronicles. Tonight, we unravel a tale of silence and suffocation, where the line between existence and oblivion blurs. What lies between the moments of our lives? What horrors lurk in the spaces we never think to notice? Be warned, this is a journey into the void, a confrontation with a force that cannot be fought, reasoned with, or escaped. Now, descend with me into the darkness and witness the presence that fills the void. It began, as such things often do, with an innocent curiosity. I had been scouring the dusty archives of Miskatonic University for months, chasing threads of an obscure medieval cult called the Silent Ones. They worshipped nothing in the traditional sense, no deity, no idol, no concept of benevolence or wrath. Instead, they revered absence, the void between thoughts, the pause in breath, the stillness of death. Among their fragmented writings, I uncovered a brittle manuscript bound in flaking leather. The text was maddeningly vague, but one phrase repeated often enough to unsettle even my skeptical mind. It watches without seeing. It hears without sound. It fills the spaces left empty by the mind. The name of the presence, Yannerthal, was scrawled in the margins, surrounded by desperate warnings. Speak it not. Let it remain unknown. Yet my hubris led me to ignore these admonitions. One night, in the flickering glow of my desk lamp, I whispered it aloud. The air around me shifted. It wasn't the chill of a breeze or the oppressive heat of fire. It was something far stranger. The room seemed to fold in on itself, the walls subtly tightening, the ceiling pressing downward. My lamp flickered, its glow feeble, and for a moment I felt as though I were suffocating, though my lungs drew breath. At first, I dismissed the experience as a flight of fancy, but in the days that followed, the phenomena grew. It began with shadows, lingering in corners long after they should have moved, twisting unnaturally as though writhing in response to my presence. I would reach for objects and find them inexplicably distant, as though space itself had warped in some imperceptible way. Time betrayed me next. Minutes stretched agonizingly long, every second a torment as I felt the oppressive stillness of the void pressing against me. Then, just as suddenly, hours would vanish, leaving me disoriented and terrified. I would find myself standing in places I didn't remember walking to, or holding books I couldn't recall opening. By the second week, the presence began asserting itself in more insidious ways. The air in my home grew thick, oppressive, as if the very act of moving through it required immense effort. My reflection in the mirror no longer matched my actions. It moved slightly slower, as though it existed in a different frame of time. I stopped looking entirely when, one night, my reflection turned to stare directly at me, unblinking as I turned away. Desperate for answers, I dove deeper into the manuscript. The stories it told were fragmented but haunting. Accounts of others who had spoken the name of the presence. A monk who locked himself in a bell tower, refusing to speak or eat until his body withered away. A sailor who walked off his ship into the ocean, claiming he was going to where silence ends. None of them had survived. None had escaped. Sleep became an impossible luxury. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it, pressing against my mind like a suffocating fog. Dreams were filled with voids where light and sound seemed to die, and I would wake gasping, my heart racing as though I had narrowly escaped drowning. The presence followed me into wakefulness, whispering its oppressive silence into every pause, every breath. Isolation became my only solace. Crowded streets felt like traps, the noise of others thinning into an unbearable, hollow silence whenever I entered their vicinity. Friends stopped calling. Even their voices over the phone sounded warped, distant, as though spoken from the other side of a great chasm. I tried to destroy the manuscript. I burned it, tore it apart, and even buried it in the earth. but each time it returned. I would find it on my desk the next morning, untouched and whole, its pages mocking me with their dreadful words. It was as though the presence itself had bound the knowledge to me, inescapable and eternal. The final revelation came one night as I sat trembling in the dim light of my study. The shadows seemed thicker than ever, the walls pressing closer, the air so heavy I could barely draw breath. And then, without warning, the walls began to ripple as though made of liquid shadow. A voice, or was it a thought, filled my mind, calm and emotionless. You are not the first. You are not the last. You are simply one more. In that moment, I understood. The presence was not malicious. It did not destroy or harm. It simply was. It had always been there, filling the spaces we never think to notice, the moments of stillness and silence we take for granted. My fate was sealed, not by its will, but by its nature. To perceive it was to invite it, and to invite it was to lose oneself. Now I sit in silence, the weight of the void crushing me. Time has no meaning. Moments stretch and collapse into one another. I no longer fight it, for there is no escape. The presence does not kill or destroy. It simply consumes, slowly and eternally, until all that remains is silence. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Abyss Chronicles. As you return to the safety of your world, remember, the void is not far. It lurks in the stillness, in the silence, in the spaces between your thoughts. Do not linger too long, lest you feel its weight pressing down upon you. Until next time, keep your mind sharp and your silence brief.